The morning sun glinted off the polished windows of Regal Rides as Snoop Dogg pulled his nondescript black SUV into the back lot of his newest acquisition. He adjusted the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of his deliberately casual appearance. Baggy jeans hanging just right, a well-worn gray hoodie replacing his usual designer threads, and his favorite pair of Chuck Taylors completing the down-to-earth look. "Time to see what's really good with my new spot," he murmured, a familiar smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The rapper-turned-businessman had learned long ago that the true measure of a business wasn't in its profit margins or fancy showroom. It was in how it treated every single customer who walked through those doors. Metrovale's premier luxury car dealership stood proud against the cityscape, its modern architecture and gleaming inventory a beacon to the wealthy and ambitious. But today, Snoop wasn't interested in the high rollers or the trust fund babies. He wanted to see how his staff handled the dreamers, the savers, the ones who worked their way up from nothing, just like he had. He pulled his hood up slightly, muscle memory from decades of trying to blend into crowds. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, the owner, sneaking into his own establishment like a character in one of those reality TV shows. But this wasn't for entertainment. This was business, his business, and he intended to run it right. Making his way around to the front entrance, Snoop noticed the small details that most owners might miss. The slightly uneven spacing of the vehicles in the lot, a coffee cup left on the corner of a pristine Mercedes hood, the way the morning shift employees hurried in through the side door, their conversations hushed but animated. As he approached the main entrance, he caught his reflection in the showroom window. Gone was the iconic figure known worldwide. In his place stood what many might mistake for just another guy from the neighborhood, hoping to catch a glimpse of vehicles that most would consider out of reach. Snoop took a deep breath, channeling the same focus that had taken him from Long Beach to international stardom, from music to entrepreneurship. He reached for the door handle, his fingers brushing against the cool metal, as the familiar scent of new leather and high expectations wafted through the opening door. "Let's see what you got for me today, Regal Rides," he whispered, stepping into the air-conditioned showroom where several sales associates were already eyeing him with varying degrees of interest, or lack thereof. The game was on, and Snoop Dogg was about to learn exactly what kind of business he'd bought into. The pristine showroom hummed with the quiet conversation of employees gathered near the reception desk, their morning coffee cups still steaming. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, sunlight danced across the polished hoods of luxury vehicles, each one positioned to catch a potential buyer's eye. Snoop stood just inside the entrance, taking in the scene with practiced patience. A woman in her mid-40s detached herself from the group, her stilettos clicking purposefully across the marble floor. Monica Slade had built her reputation in the luxury car business through an uncanny ability to size up customers in seconds. Her charcoal pencil skirt and crisp white blazer projected the image of success she'd carefully cultivated over 15 years in the industry. "Good morning," she said, her professional smile not quite reaching her eyes as they flicked over his casual attire. "Welcome to Regal Rides. Is there something specific you're looking for today?" Her tone carried the subtle implication that perhaps he had wandered into the wrong dealership. Snoop noted the slight tilt of her head, the way she maintained a careful distance, body language he'd seen countless times before he'd made his name. "Just browsing," he replied, his voice deliberately casual as he gestured toward a sleek black Bentley. "That right there caught my eye." Monica's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "The Continental GT is one of our premium models. The starting price point is in the neighborhood of $200,000. She emphasized the number slightly, watching for his reaction. Behind them, the small group of employees had grown quieter, their attention drawn to the scene playing out before them. One young salesman whispered something that drew a few smirks from his colleagues. 200? Snoop raised his eyebrows, moving unhurried toward the vehicle. "Mind if I take a closer look?" "Sir," Monica began, positioning herself between him and the car. "Perhaps I could show you something more suitable. We do have some pre-owned options that might better align with your needs." Snoop caught his reflection in the Bentley's tinted windows, his hoodie-clad figure standing opposite Monica's polished presence. In the background, he could see the other employees watching, their expressions ranging from amusement to discomfort. Every assumption, every prejudice, Every preconception he'd suspected might exist in his new business was playing out exactly as he'd anticipated. Suitable, he repeated softly, the word hanging in the air between them. Why don't you tell me more about what you think would be suitable for someone like me? Monica's perfectly manicured fingers tapped a glossy brochure on her desk as she settled into her chair, gesturing for Snoop to take a seat across from her. The office was meticulously organized, walls adorned with sales achievement awards and photos of her standing beside luxury vehicles with beaming customers, all of them dressed in business attire or designer clothes. Let's have an honest conversation, she began, her voice taking on what she clearly thought was a helpful tone. At Regal Rides, we pride ourselves on matching our clients with vehicles that make sense for their situation. She pulled out a separate stack of papers from her desk drawer. These are some of our pre-owned options that offer excellent value. Snoop leaned back in his chair, one hand absently adjusting his hoodie strings. Value, huh? His eyes tracked across the showroom floor through her office window, where the Bentley still gleamed under the showroom lights. Tell me more about what makes these the right fit for my situation. Well, Monica continued, warming to what she clearly saw as a teachable moment. Our pre-owned inventory includes several reliable vehicles in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. She slid a paper across her desk. With the right financing options, assuming you qualify, of course, we could potentially work out a monthly payment that wouldn't be too overwhelming. A young salesman appeared in the doorway with a coffee carafe. Would either of you like a refresh? He asked, though his eyes darted nervously between them. I'm good, Snoop replied, noticing how the young man quickly filled Monica's cup, but made no move to offer him one directly. Monica shuffled through the papers with practiced efficiency. Now, this 2019 BMW 3 Series might be more aligned with your budget. It's previously owned but well-maintained, and it still carries that luxury cash you're looking for. She emphasized the last part as if offering a consolation prize. Snoop picked up the list, scanning it with measured interest. Years of business dealings had taught him to read between the lines, and Monica's carefully worded dismissals were spelling out a story as clear as any contract. What if, he said slowly, folding the paper and sliding it back across the desk, I told you I was interested in purchasing multiple vehicles? For a business fleet, maybe. Monica's smile flickered for just a moment. Sir, fleet purchases typically involve corporate accounts with verified credit lines and substantial down payments. Perhaps we should focus on finding you a single vehicle that's within reach. She tapped the pre-owned list again. These options here represent realistic goals. Snoop rose from his chair, his movement unhurried but deliberate. You know what? You're right. I should probably think about what's realistic. He moved toward the office door, then paused. One more question, though. How long you been running the sales team here at Regal Rides? Just over 3 years, Monica replied, pride evident in her voice. I've built this team from the ground up. 3 years, Snoop repeated thoughtfully. That's interesting. He left the statement hanging in the air as he stepped out of her office, the weight of unspoken words settling behind him like dust. Snoop turned back from the office doorway, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. The morning light streaming through the showroom windows cast long shadows across the floor between them, like lines being drawn in the sand. Let me ask you something, he said, his voice carrying a hint of steel beneath its casual tone. What exactly made you decide I couldn't afford these cars? Monica straightened in her chair, her professional mask slipping for just a moment before clicking back into place. Sir, I assure you I'm only trying to be practical. Our time is valuable, and Regal Rides caters to a very specific type of client. She gestured at the framed photos on her wall. Our typical customers have established relationships with high-end dealers. They come recommended by our existing clientele. Specific type, Snoop repeated, moving back into her office. Mind breaking that down for me? The other employees had stopped pretending to work, their attention fixed on the scene unfolding in Monica's office. One of them reached for their phone, but a colleague quickly shook their head. Look, Monica said, her tone growing firmer. I've been in this business long enough to know who can and cannot afford our inventory. I'm actually trying to help you avoid embarrassment. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Now, if you're not interested in the pre-owned options I've shown you, I'd like to speak to the owner, Snoop interrupted quietly. Monica's laugh was short and dismissive. The owner doesn't take walk-in appointments, especially not for... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Browsers who aren't serious buyers. So what makes a serious buyer? Snoop leaned against her doorframe, his posture relaxed but his gaze intense. What clothes are they wearing? The way they talk? Or something else you trying not to say out loud? The air in the office grew thick with tension. Through the windows, the morning sun caught the chrome and polish of millions of dollars worth of luxury vehicles, each one a symbol of success, and each one, according to Monica's judgment, out of reach for the man standing before her. Sir, Monica's voice had taken on an edge of finality. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We clearly cannot help you today, and I have actual appointments to prepare for. Actual appointments, Snoop nodded slowly. That's cool, but you know what's funny about assumptions, Monica? They have a way of surprising you. He adjusted his hoodie and turned toward the door. I'll be back to talk to the owner, count on that. He walked out of her office with unhurried steps, leaving Monica to her actual appointments and her world of carefully constructed assumptions. As he passed through the showroom, he could feel the weight of stares from the other employees, their whispered conversations already beginning to circulate. The morning sun caught the chrome of the luxury vehicles around him, each one a symbol of success that, according to Monica's judgment, belonged to a different kind of person entirely. Snoop smiled to himself as he pushed through the front doors. This visit had told him everything he needed to know about Regal Rides, and about what needed to change. Instead of heading for the exit, Snoop settled into one of the leather chairs in the waiting area, pulling out his phone with the casual air of someone who had all the time in the world. The sales team exchanged uncertain glances as he scrolled through his contacts and placed a call. Yeah, D, his voice carried across the now quiet showroom. I'm at the spot right now. Think you might want to swing through. He paused, a slight smile playing at his lips. Trust me, it's worth your time. Monica emerged from her office, arms crossed, clearly torn between approaching him again and maintaining her professional distance. The other employees had positioned themselves strategically around the showroom, pretending to be busy while stealing glances at the scene unfolding before them. 15 minutes passed, marked only by the soft classical music playing through the dealership's speakers and the occasional whispered conversation among the staff. The front doors swung open, and Darius Coleman strode in, his tailored suit and commanding presence drawing all eyes in the room. The regional director's face broke into a wide grin as he spotted Snoop. Boss, I should have known you'd pull something like this on your first day of ownership. The word ownership fell like a thunderclap in the silent showroom. Monica's hands dropped to her sides, her face a study in dawning horror. My man, Snoop stood, embracing Darius with a laugh. Had to see how things really run around here. You feel me? Ladies and gentlemen, Darius turned to address the stunned staff, his voice carrying the weight of authority. I'd like to formally introduce you to Calvin Broadus Jr., better known as Snoop Dogg, the new owner of Regal Rides. The silence that followed was deafening. One of the younger salesmen actually dropped the tablet he was holding, the clatter echoing through the showroom. Monica had gone perfectly still, her earlier dismissive confidence replaced by a look of pure shock. Ladies and gentlemen, Darius continued, his voice filling the stunned showroom, Mr. Broadus is not just our new owner. He's also one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the entertainment industry. The silence in the showroom was absolute. Monica stood frozen in place, her earlier confidence replaced by a look of pure shock, as the reality of who she'd been dismissing all morning finally sank in. Monica stood rooted to the spot, her professional composure crumbling as the full impact of the morning's events crashed over her. The pre-owned vehicle listings she'd so confidently pushed across her desk mere minutes ago now felt like damning evidence in her hands. Mrs. Slade, Darius said formally, I'd like to properly introduce you to Calvin Broadus Jr., also known as Snoop Dogg. As I mentioned, he's the new owner of Regal Rides. The color had completely drained from Monica's face. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Around her, the other employees shifted uncomfortably, the morning's earlier whispers and smirks now hanging heavy in the air. Snoop turned to face her directly, his calm demeanor unchanged from when he first walked through the doors. You seemed real concerned about suitable clients earlier, he said, his voice level but direct. Let's talk about what that means in your mind. Monica's hands trembled slightly as she set the papers down on a nearby desk. Mr. Broaddus, I didn't... Didn't what? Snoop asked, maintaining the same relaxed stance he'd held all morning. Didn't think someone in a hoodie and jeans could own this place? Or didn't think they should be allowed to shop here? The classical music playing softly through the showroom, speakers seemed jarringly out of place now, a soundtrack to Monica's world turning upside down. She had spent the entire morning dismissing and redirecting the very person who now held her career in his hands. The conference room filled quickly as employees filed in, the usual chatter notably absent. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the long mahogany table where Snoop had taken a seat at the head, Darius standing beside him. Monica sat at the far end, her usual confidence replaced by rigid discomfort. "First, let me make something clear," Snoop began, his voice carrying easily across the room. "This ain't about calling anybody out. This is about making sure we all understand what Regal Rides is going to be moving forward." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "I walked in here today dressed exactly like this for a reason. Because the clothes somebody wearing, that ain't telling you what's in their bank account. That ain't telling you nothing about who they are or what they can afford." The silence in the room was absolute as he continued. "Every person who walks through those doors deserves respect. I don't care if they coming in wearing a three-piece suit or basketball shorts. I don't care if they drove up in a Bentley or took the bus. That's how we building this business, on respect." Darius nodded in agreement as Snoop looked around the room, meeting each employee's eyes. "From today, there ain't no such thing as a suitable customer at Regal Rides. There's just customers, and every single one of them gets treated with dignity. That's non-negotiable." The morning sun cast long shadows across the conference table as the weight of his words settled over the room. This wasn't just a reprimand. It was a fundamental shift in how Regal Rides would operate going forward. Monica rose from her seat, her hands pressed flat against the conference table for support. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Gone was the polished confidence of the morning. In its place stood someone confronting the weight of her own prejudices. "Mr. Broaddus," she began, her voice wavering slightly, "I want to apologize for my behavior this morning. The way I treated you was completely unacceptable. I made assumptions that were wrong, and I'm truly sorry." Snoop studied her for a moment before responding. "I hear you," he said evenly. "But you know what's more important than saying sorry? Showing it. Words is easy. Change, that's the hard part." He stood up, addressing the whole room again. "Starting next week, we implementing new training programs. Every single person in this dealership gonna learn about unconscious bias, customer service excellence, and treating people with respect. No exceptions." Darius stepped forward with a folder, distributing documents to everyone present. "These are the details of our new customer service initiatives," he explained. "We'll be bringing in professional trainers to work with each department." "See, luxury ain't just about the price tag," Snoop continued. "It's about how you make people feel when they walk through those doors. Every customer who comes in here deserves to feel like they belong, whether they buying today or just dreaming about tomorrow." As the morning meeting drew to a close, Snoop moved to the front of the conference room, his presence now commanding a different kind of attention than when he first entered the dealership. The employees sat straighter in their chairs, their expressions shifting from apprehension to attentiveness. "Let me tell you what luxury really means," Snoop said, gesturing toward the showroom visible through the glass walls. "Those cars out there, they ain't just metal and leather, they're dreams. And everybody who walks through those doors is chasing their dream, whether they're ready to buy today or just wanting to get a closer look at their future." The tension that had filled the room earlier began to dissolve as he continued. "Regal Rides isn't just about selling cars anymore. We're about respect, about treating everyone who comes through those doors like they matter, because they do." Monica, who had remained quiet since her apology, nodded slowly, understanding beginning to replace her earlier shame. Other employees around the room started showing signs of engagement, some taking notes, others exchanging thoughtful glances. "From today," Snoop concluded, "we're setting a new standard in the luxury car game. It ain't about judging who belongs here. It's about making sure everyone who steps foot in this place knows they welcome. That's how we gonna build something special. That's how we gonna make Regal Rides a name that means something more than just high-end cars." The morning sun had risen fully now, flooding the showroom with light that seemed to signal the dawn of a new era for Regal Rides, one where respect and fairness would drive their success just as much as the prestigious vehicles in their inventory. The story of Snoop's undercover visit to Regal Rides spread through Metrovale like wildfire, then beyond the city limits, capturing attention across social media and news outlets. Business schools began incorporating the incident into their ethics curricula, while corporate trainers referenced it in workshops about unconscious bias and customer service. Inside Regal Rides, the transformation was evident. The showroom buzzed with a different energy now, one where every customer received the same warm welcome, regardless of their attire or appearance. Local business leaders visited to observe and learn, taking notes on how a luxury brand could maintain its prestige while embracing true inclusivity. One morning, several months after Snoop's visit, a young man in worn jeans and a t-shirt wandered into the dealership. Monica approached him with a genuine smile, the same one she'd just given the corporate executive who'd left minutes earlier in his new Mercedes. "Welcome to Regal Rides," she greeted him warmly. "I'm Monica Slade. What brings you in today?" The young man mentioned he'd just landed his first major contract as a software developer and was thinking about treating himself. Monica listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about his preferences and needs, the same way she would with any client. As she guided him through the showroom, sharing specifications and features with enthusiasm, there wasn't a trace of the prejudice that had once clouded her judgment. The lesson from that fateful morning had transformed not just Monica, but the entire culture of Regal Rides. It stood as living proof that real change was possible when leadership led by example and people took accountability for their actions. The dealership had become more than just a place to buy luxury cars. It was now a testament to what happens when bias gives way to respect, when assumptions are replaced with understanding, and when everyone is truly welcomed.